Recognition, I think, Senator Pryor. Senator Johnson.
Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I certainly share and represent the same interests as Senator Baldwin in this. Obviously, take a somewhat different perspective on this, and I'd like to respond to a couple comments and reinforce a couple points. First of all, from my standpoint, this is not my solution. I really think the best thing for the post office is to be set free. The best way to actually ensure that it would remain as an entity long term would be to go through a reorganization under the protection of the bankruptcy code. That's the way it would happen in the private sector. It probably provides the best chance for the Postal Service to survive long term. Or again, what we're doing is we're resolving it through a political process, and we're seeing how messy that is and really how much that long-term survival is being put at risk. Secondly, let me put my business hat on. I think it's always risky as a business to base your business model on a supplier who, let's face it, is basically bankrupt. And so as concerned as I am about the industries in Wisconsin, they're relying on a business model that is not particularly stable. And what we're trying to do here, and this is where I appreciate the work of the chair and the ranking member, is to try and make this entity survive so we provide some stability so we take at least that risk out of their business model. Because right now, if this bill fails, who knows what's going to happen to the postal system? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what size the mounting losses will be. And that's something I want to reinforce, something Dr. Coburn said as well, is in theory, sure, the American taxpayer is not paying for the post office, but $15 billion worth of debt came out of the American taxpayer's hide. And as losses mount in the future, where's that money going to come from? And the unfunded liabilities tacked onto the $15 billion, if the post office ultimately fails, who's going to pick up that tab? So no, the American taxpayer is surely on the hook. It is very strange in business, by and large, unless you're in a commodity type of business where you have real volatility of your cost structure, to rescind price increases. And it just doesn't happen. And yet that's what we're really talking about here. And let's say if we statutorily rescind the exigent price increase, what's that going to do to the post office? What would be the rationale for rescinding that? Has their cost decreased? I don't think so. So I would see no reason that in a normal business model that a price increase would be rescinded in any responsible manner. I would agree, by the way, that looking at projections is pretty dicey. But you have to look at them. You have to do something projecting forward. The way I would manage this business decision, though, is I'd also look at history. And one of the things I try to do in the intervening weeks since our last hearing was try and get some sense of what has been the history of price increases between not only the post office but its competitors, UPS and FedEx. And I have, and I'm not, it's very difficult to get this because we have announced price increases, but I have gotten a schedule here. And I don't know if we should enter this in the record, but I think it's relevant. I want to take a little bit of time to go through this, but if you add up since 2009 for 6 years, in terms of the announced price increases for UPS and FedEx, their ground service, it totals 30.4%. If you take a look at what price increases the postal system has done on carrier routes and pre-sort flats, it's 16.8 and 14.4%. So I think in a business setting, you have to benchmark, what's your pricing structure been versus your competitors. And I just want to ask, as long as I've got the Assistant Postmaster General here, is that relatively accurate? Have your price increases lagged that far behind both UPS and FedEx?
I'll defer to our Chief Financial Officer, Joe Corbett.
The quick answer, Senator, is yes, they have.
Well, that's a problem. I think that should also be brought into the equation in terms of what we should really be doing price-wise. And again, from my standpoint, I think Congress is going to be a pretty bad evaluator of what your prices ought to be. I think any business, I can't imagine trying to run a business where one of the riskiest decisions I have to make is a price increase or a price decrease, and not having the flexibility to make that based on economic conditions and business conditions on a day-to-day basis. And yet we're pretty well taking that power, that flexibility away from the Postal Service. It's not going to end well. So, from my standpoint, again, I'd rather give you guys the greatest flexibility because, I think you're reasonably intelligent, understanding that you don't want to lose a big chunk of your business. You want to maintain that, even if it's a loss leader. I don't believe you're going to overprice that and price yourself totally out of business. Last point, because it's been made repeatedly, the post office is a monopoly. If the post office was a true monopoly, you'd be making all kinds of money. Your service would really stink. Your prices would be incredibly high. The fact is you're not a true monopoly, which is why you're suffering these kind of losses, and so you need that kind of flexibility. So again, this would not be my solution to the problem, but I really do commend Senator Carper, Senator Coburn for their hard effort to try and craft some kind of compromise that just might survive to provide some postal reform that gives the post office at least the possibility of surviving. Because if we don't do this, I think we put at risk the Postal Service, and I think we put at even greater risk those businesses in Wisconsin that rely on you. So I think providing that stability and that security trumps certainly my idea of how this thing should be resolved, and I'm willing to support what Dr. Coburn and Senator Carper has done. Thank you.
I want to thank you very much. Thank you for what you've just said here. Thank you very much for what you offered to us 2 weeks ago. It was very important at that point in time, and thank you for reiterating it today. I just want to, before I yield to Senator Pryor,